In less than 72 hours after Donald Trump announced his sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian goods, Canada struck back with a $262 million railway investment that bypassed every major U.S. port on the West Coast. The announcement landed like a sledgehammer. Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railway would redirect container traffic from Seattle, Tacoma, and Los Angeles directly to Prince Rupert and Vancouver, cutting American port workers, truckers, and logistics hubs completely out of the equation. The damage? An estimated $4.7 billion in annual port revenue. Gone. Canada didn't even flinch. Prime Minister Mark Carney released a statement that was as blunt as it was brutal. Canada will not be held hostage by impulsive trade policy. We're building infrastructure that ensures our sovereignty. Trump's tariff gamble, meant to strong-arm Canada into submission, had backfired against him completely. And here's the part that should terrify every American. This isn't just about trade statistics or GDP percentages. This is about your mortgage, your car payment, your grocery bill. When Canadian goods get rerouted away from U.S. infrastructure, American consumers pay the price, literally. Economists at the University of Michigan estimate the average American household will face an additional $1,340 in annual costs due to disrupted supply chains and retaliatory measures. Home builders are already reporting lumber price spikes of 34% since the tariff announcement. Car manufacturers? They're looking at an extra $670 per vehicle in steel and aluminum costs alone. But before we dive into exactly how Canada is rewiring North American trade to leave the U.S. behind, hit that like button and subscribe. On January 4th, 2026, Donald Trump invoked Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the same mechanism he wielded during his first term to justify national security tariffs on steel and aluminum. This time, the scope was even more aggressive, a 25% across-the-board tariff on all Canadian imports, citing unfair trade practices and border security concerns. The tariff applies to $418 billion in annual Canadian exports to the U.S., affecting everything from crude oil, $124 billion annually, to automotive parts, $62 billion, to steel, $14.3 billion. Trump framed it as leverage, a negotiating tactic, a way to bring Canada to the table. Canada saw it differently. They saw it as economic warfare, and they responded not with threats, but with infrastructure. Within 48 hours of Trump's announcement, Canadian Transport Minister Omar Alghabra unveiled the $262 million Prince Rupert Vancouver Rail Corridor Expansion Project. The plan, double-track 147 kilometers of rail line, expand container terminal capacity by 1.8 million TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, annually, and create a seamless routing system that allows Asian imports destined for North America to completely skip U.S. soil. The message was clear. If American ports want to play politics, Canada will build around them. Here's where Trump's strategy falls apart. He assumed Canada had no choice but to route goods through American infrastructure. He was wrong. Prince Rupert, located on Canada's northern Pacific coast, is already the closest major North American port to Asia, 58 hours closer to Shanghai than Los Angeles. With the new rail investment, Canada is positioning itself as the faster, cheaper, and more politically stable gateway for Asian manufacturers looking to access North American markets. And the numbers are staggering. In 2024, Prince Rupert handled 1.42 million TEUs. By 2028, with the expanded rail corridor, capacity is projected to hit 3.6 million TEUs, a 154% increase. Compare that to the Port of Los Angeles, which handled 9.2 million TEUs in 2024, but has seen a 7% decline in volume since Trump's tariff announcement as shipping companies explore alternatives. Canada isn't just surviving Trump's tariffs. They're using them as a catalyst to rewire their entire trade strategy. The Canadian government has already signed preliminary agreements with South Korea, Japan, and Vietnam to prioritize Prince Rupert and Vancouver for container traffic. Meanwhile, European partners are eyeing expanded rail-to-Atlantic shipping routes through Montreal and Halifax, further isolating U.S. logistics networks. Trump wanted to make America the center of North American trade. Instead, he's made it the bottleneck everyone is learning to avoid. Let's talk specifics. Let's talk about who bleeds when Trump plays hardball and Canada pivots. The average American-made car contains $3,400 worth of Canadian parts: steel, aluminum, engines, wiring harnesses. With the 25% tariff, automakers are facing an immediate $850 cost increase per vehicle. Ford, GM, and Stellantis have already announced they'll pass those costs to consumers. If you're shopping for a new truck in 2026, expect sticker prices to jump by at least $900. Canadian lumber accounts for 31% of all softwood used in U.S. home construction. Since the tariff, lumber futures have spiked from $412 per thousand board feet to $587, a 42% increase. The National Association of Home Builders estimates this adds $7,200 to the cost of an average single-family home. In a housing market already crushed by high interest rates, Trump just made it worse. Canada supplies 4.3 million barrels of crude oil to the U.S. every single day, 60% of all American oil imports. The tariff doesn't just hit Canadian producers, it hits American refineries that depend on Canadian heavy crude. Gasoline prices have already climbed 11 cents per gallon in Midwest states since the announcement, with analysts projecting a 28-cent increase by March if the tariff holds. Canadian semiconductor components and rare earth exports to U.S. tech manufacturers have dropped 19% in volume as companies scramble to find alternative suppliers. Apple, Intel, and Nvidia are all facing supply chain delays that could cost the tech sector an estimated $2.1 billion in Q1 2026 alone. And here's the cruelest irony. Trump's tariff was supposed to protect American jobs. Instead, the Port of Seattle has announced potential layoffs affecting 1,840 dock workers. Trucking companies in the Pacific Northwest are reporting a 23% drop in cross-border freight. Warehouses in Montana and North Dakota, states that depend on Canadian trade, are operating at just 64% capacity. Donald Trump operates on a simple premise. America is so powerful, so essential, that no one can afford to walk away from the table. But Canada just did. And they didn't just walk, they built a new table. The $262 million railway investment isn't a reaction. It's a declaration. Canada is signaling to the world that it will no longer structure its economy around the whims of American politics. They're building infrastructure that reduces reliance on U.S. ports, U.S. logistics, and U.S. goodwill. And in doing so, they're making themselves more attractive to Asian and European trading partners who are tired of Trump's chaos. Meanwhile, American industries are drowning in costs they can't absorb. American consumers are staring down price increases they can't afford. And American ports are losing cargo they can't replace. Trump promised strength. He delivered isolation. He promised leverage. He delivered a $4.7 billion revenue loss. He promised to make America the center of global trade. Instead, he's teaching the world how to root around it. So here's the question. Has Donald Trump finally overplayed his hand? Or is this just the beginning of America's self-inflicted economic collapse? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of the next trade war disaster, subscribe now, because Trump's next move is already being drafted, and Canada's already 2 steps ahead.